In this video, I'll show you the first of the soon-to-be-released Trench Crusade plastic miniature kits, the Prussian Stoßtruppen Warband, and I'll tell you what I think about them. A few weeks ago, the nice folks at Factory Fortress, the makers of Trench Crusade, sent me 2 boxes of their first ever plastic models, the Prussian Stoßtruppen Warband. I took them with me to VinciCon last week, and I built the 8 models in, one of the boxes. These models aren't in stores yet, but they will be either later this year or maybe early next year, I believe. They should be available in stores eventually. I thought I'd make this video about the quality of the models, though, like the ease of building them and kind of how they turned out, since I got a lot of questions when I posted some photos of them on social media during VinciCon. Now, if you're not familiar with Trench Crusade, it's a skirmish miniature wargame that takes place in an alternate history 1914. The Crusades never ended, there's an entrance to hell on Earth, and much of humanity has been fighting against the actual forces of hell. Demons and monsters and corrupted humans for over 800 years now. It's very, very grim dark, and it had a hugely successful Kickstarter last year and released 6 entire forces of models in STL 3D printer format. I made a video about it here, pachow, if you want to go and learn some more. However, when we saw just how much money they made on the Kickstarter, I knew that they'd be making plastics sooner or later. Now, that said, I didn't expect them this soon, right? I kind of figured maybe mid to late 2026, but they've been definitely keeping their foot on the gas over there at Factory Fortress, which is very cool, right? Though the game is completely miniatures agnostic, you can use whatever models you like. They have said so. You're going to play in an official tournament and you kit bashed all your stuff. They're totally cool with that, right? And they also have an entire line, like I said, of 3D printable models available as well. That's great and all, but if you really, really want to get serious in miniatures gaming as a company, you need to get products into stores. And in this day and age, plastics is how you do it. So they worked with Archon Studio out of Poland, makers of stuff like Dungeons and Lasers, the Rampart modular terrain system, which I love, by the way, the Masters of the Universe He-Man Battleground game or whatever, and also the soon-to-be-released StarCraft tabletop miniatures game. That's who Archon, that's what they do. And they do really nice models. They make really nice hard plastic models. And they also did great work on these Trench Crusade Prussians as well. The Prussians are a sub-faction of the Principality of New Antioch. So they're technically kind of part of the good guys, and there's a great deal of flavor here in these models. So let's take a look, shall we? Here is the box. It's a nice looking box. It was shrink wrapped. I took the shrink wrap off so I wouldn't have to do it here on the camera. It's a whole thing. Anyway, you've got nice artwork of the, you've got some nice artwork. The artwork is amazing in Trench Crusade, always has been. But you've got some nice actual photographs of very nicely painted models of the models that are in the box. Again, the Prussian Stoßtruppen Warband for the Principality of New Antioch. On the back, we get to see the names of them all. We've got 3 Stoßtruppen, we've got 3 Yeomen, we've got a Hauptmann you can build in 2 different ways, and you've got a Feldkaplan, which you can also kind of build in 2 different ways. A lot of these things you can build in 2 different ways. The Hauptmann, they showed you can do it 2 different, there's not enough room in the box to show all the different possibilities, but in the instruction manual there is enough. Now, the thing that's interesting about the instruction manual, there's no instruction manual, at least not paper one here. Inside we have, that's it. We've got 2 sprues, a box-sized sprue. We've got a 2/3 of a box-sized sprue, and we've got a bunch of bases. Now, so how do I put them together, right? Well, you'll notice there's this QR code right here on the back of the box, right? Lore, rules, starter sets, and assembly guide available here. And what it does is it brings you up a PDF that I've got here on my phone, if I can get it to focus. Now, the thing that's interesting about this, and this just might be the graphics layout nerd in me, but I noticed that it is basically kind of phone shaped. This is not like 8.5 by 11 format or A4 format. This is like kind of long, kind of phone shaped. So I'm wondering if that's like the idea that they had ahead of time to be just like, look, this is the type of thing that people are going to use to look at it. Nonetheless, we have the war bands, we have the rules, we have some sample war bands, we have the miniatures assembly guide, and then we have the credits and copyrights and such. And so you've got some fluff, you've got some crazy looking artwork that's really, really cool. You've got strengths and weaknesses to this particular warband. Then you have the Hauptmann, the Feldkapten. Sniper Priest is not a model that's in the box, so you would probably either make your own or use the Sniper Priest from, New Antioch. You could do that too. Yeoman, Stasstruppen, Combat Engineers, same thing as the Sniper Priest, same thing as the Combat Medic, and same things as Mechanized Infantry. You can use all those models, or again, like I said, make your own if you want to. But they will all be available in this particular list. Speaking of lists, there's information about warband creation and all the different stuff here. You've got your armory tables. This is a 72-page document, by the way. It just kind of keeps going. There's a lot in here, which is really cool, and it's all about this particular force. Then we have the actual listings for the different, the Sniper Priest and the Hauptmann and the Feldkapten and all that kind of stuff. And then eventually we get to the building, but only after we go through a couple of sample, lists that you can build. There's 2 different ones that'll show you all that stuff. Then we get into the miniatures guide, and it shows you, this stuff looks like any other kind of major plastic manufacturer that you're working with these days. And they make, they do this and then do this and whatnot. And they'll have this one is, it starts out with black numbers, meaning that you build this no matter what. But then depending on how you want to build it, if you're going to be separating and going, one build versus the other build, then there's red little marks here that tell you you do that, or there's yellow ones and they tell you. So it's very simple to figure out how you should build them. Depending on how you want to go. Here it'll show you the red one. Option A is the 2-handed sword, and option B is the 1-handed sword and the submachine gun. And then you just kind of go through and build. It's really nice. It's very simple. Saves paper, so they don't have to put that stuff in the box, which I think is pretty cool. The bases are interesting. Let me see if I can get them out. So the bases are not just generic bases. They actually say on the bottom here, Factory Fortress Inc. I don't know if we can get it to show here. Can we get it to focus? There we go. So they're actually made by Trench Crusade. These are specific Trench Crusade bases, and you'll notice they have a little bump there, a little thing, a little area to glue a magnet in there if you want to magnetize your miniatures, which is cool. I'll be honest, I kind of prefer GW's bumpy surface here because I like to use it in my sci-fi miniatures as asphalt, the base asphalt on my bases, and then I sprinkle extra stuff on top here and there. This is less fine grain, but with Trench Crusade stuff, I'm going to cover the entire bases with mud, so it doesn't really matter that much. But they come with all the right sizes you need. There's some 32s, there's 25s, stuff like that, or maybe 28s. I forget. But they tell you in the instructions which one to use with which model. They come in the baggie, and it's kind of nice. The plastics themselves, these things are this feels like GW plastic. The stuff that GW uses, from what I've been told, is called HIPS, which stands for High Impact Polystyrene. This feels the same. If anything, I'll be perfectly honest with you, I feel like the sprues themselves are a little bit thicker than GW ones. I could be wrong. They definitely have that whole kind of puzzle thing going on that GW has been doing over the last 5 to 10 years, where they must use a computer to Tetris all the parts together so there's no wasted space. If you remember back in the day, old GW models, there was tons of space. You could stick your fingers in between the models, and nowadays you can sometimes barely get clippers in there. I didn't have any problem building these. These guys clipped quite well, and I had a pretty good time doing it. It was not a problem. Also, I don't know if you can see this either, all the numbers have a little arrow next to them. Let me turn this upside down here like that. Catch it in the light. So right here, this one is number 30, and there's an arrow to show that this is part 30. That is also really nice. There are times that GW will put a number somewhere and you're like, is that supposed to be this one or that one? And it can be a little tough. In this situation, every single one of these, the number points towards the actual bit, which is really great. As far as building, they went together really easily. A lot of the parts, let's see if I can find a good one here, like an arm or a leg. A lot of the parts have a lug. Let's see here. Right there by my finger, there's a little dot right? That goes into like a socket on the other side when you're putting the legs together. And it's nice that way. It goes together really simply. There was basically nothing in here where you didn't have to glue two legs together, which drives me a little nuts sometimes. I'm like, if I can't pose the stuff, then why not just have the leg? But I get it, I guess. There were very few options where I'd be like, well, you use this leg or this leg. It was always like, no, you have to glue these two legs together, which is a thing, you know. GW these days will make it where even a leg is multiple parts sometimes, right? And I kind of miss the old days when like from the waist down was all one part, because then it's just easier and faster and I'm not having to glue as many pieces together. I was not as annoyed putting these together as I am by you know, current day GW models. So I would take that with, you know, with what you will. Like this musician here with the glockenspiel, like you basically get his entire torso and his glockenspiel and this arm and even his little clanger. But on the back of him, you can't see it here, the arm that's holding the glockenspiel is missing. That's another piece. And that was a little fiddly to get glued in there. I remember that. But, you know, you just got the one musician that you can really generally take, so it's not too bad. Another thing, though, is that most of these models, when you're going through to build them, some of them have tactical rocks or tactical sandbags to stand on, which is fine. That doesn't bother me that much. But a lot of them can be built like two different ways. You're either going to have, you know, a bolt-action rifle, right, and an axe, or you're going to have a trench club and an axe, right? But what if you wanted a sword? You know what I mean? Like there are some swords in here, but they are generally designed to be used with other models and stuff like that, because those models have got the swords. I wish there were a few more pieces. One of the things that's very cool about Trench Crusade is you have a lot of options when you are outfitting your models. Now, to be fair, an axe and a sword are basically, as far as the stats are concerned, the same. So if you're just like, well, I'd kind of like to have a sword, you're doing that more because you're interested in the idea of the look of a guy with a sword versus a guy with an axe. It doesn't really give you any benefit rules-wise because, like I said, they're the same thing in the rules. And there's a lot of different things in the rules where, like, this and this are basically the same. And it's not even like their stats are close. I mean, they're in the same line. It's a trench, you know, it's an axe/sword. And then this are the points for it that you cost to buy it. And these are the stats and stuff like that. All that to be said, again, the models went together really well. I would have liked to have seen just a little bit more customization. But for the most part, they went together really well. The detail, let me see if I can get to focus again. Come on, buddy. There we go. Like the detail, like on that chest piece right there, it's very good. Is it absolutely as sharp as GW? I would say it's very, very, very close, but it is not absolutely as sharp as GW. It's so close that it's hard to tell the difference, honestly, but I feel like it's just like if GW molds are made with these incredibly super, super, super tiny little Dremel type things on a robot arm that etches everything out of the metal molds, they used like one step larger tiny microscopic Dremel tool to do the insides of these, which means that nothing comes to a completely super sharp razor point, but that's not the end of the world, you know? I think to your average person, they would not notice the difference between these two. I've been doing this for a long time and have been keeping track and looking at very specifically how these things get made. And I would say that these are just a touch under the sharpness of GW. Frankly, I think sometimes GW's sharpness is a little too sharp. If you're ever trying to like put together the, those guys, the Varengard, those big guys on horses, they were way too pointy and I hurt myself doing it. So just FYI, these guys are not as pointy, but the detail is great. I think that they're going to be a lot of fun to paint up. I have not painted them yet. I got them built at VinciCon, and they are now ready to get their bases. I need to texture their bases so that they match up my other Trench Crusade models, and then it'll be prime time, and then starting to paint. And I have ideas on how I want to paint them. Again, looking at the artwork here in the phone app thing is really cool because there's a lot of really, really good looking artwork. And there's a lot of times when I'm like looking at this and I'm going, I know what colors I'm going to use for that. You know what I mean? To get close to this. So I'm really looking forward to painting them. And I think they're going to be a lot of fun. I'm also going to use, like, again, this is the second box, obviously, because there's no parts missing. I'm going to use this second one to make a couple of the alternates that I wasn't able to make with the first ones. It's the same general idea where if you're going to build this model, you either give it this loadout or this loadout, but if you wanted both, then you need two models. So possibly that's why they sent me two of the boxes. Nonetheless, yeah, I'm really impressed by these. I've built other models and things like that from Archon Studio before, and these are, if anything, I think these are even a little better than the last thing that I built from them. I've built some like vehicles and stuff like them. There's that tank that I bought at, I think, Gen Con, or maybe it was Nova. I forget where I picked it up, but I bought one of the tanks from them. And, you know, again, it's a big vehicle. You don't need nearly as sharp of detail. But like if you look at the, here on the, I think this is the Feldkappen, that's a bunch of, you know, chainmail. Like that's really high detail. That's a lot of detail. And that's really nice. So if you're used to painting and building GW models, I would say these are pretty comparable. I would say that they're a little bit easier to build, personally. Just the way it felt to me as I built them, I was not flummoxed at any point for the most part. There was one model where like the arm just sort of had to kind of fit in a certain spot, and it didn't quite necessarily, but it was pretty close. Like some of them were very simple. Like obviously this peg goes into this hole and it fits and it's square and it's just really easy to do. And there was like one model where I was like, well, this is a little bit close, but you use some good glue and it takes care of the problem pretty easily. So to sum up, I'm really happy with these plastics. I'm very happy with these plastics. They went together pretty easily for the most part. They have great detail. The numbering is very, very clear. They're sturdy. And the sculpts themselves are really characterful, you know, kind of matching a lot of the kind of sculpts that you have in the STLs for the previous stuff that they put out at the end of 2024 that you can get now. I'm going to build, like I said, a few more from the second box and kind of the other configurations, so I have more options in my Prussian force during list building, which will be kind of nice. But then, at that point, I might try some kit bashing with some of the other models as well. We'll see how it goes. The models, like I said, aren't as customizable as, say, like Stargrave or Frostgrave models, but they're designed to fill specific roles in the Prussian forces, whereas Stargrave and Frostgrave are just, you know, to make dudes. And again, if I do have any kind of complaint, the littlest, tiniest complaint is that while the models in the box all generally have like loadout options, you can build them multiple ways. Even the musician, you can just change his helmet. You can't really change his different type. You can't give him like a rockin' guitar or anything like that. It's going to be the, you know, power glockenspiel or whatever that he's banging away on. But they generally kind of only have specific options represented by the weapons in the box. So this guy either goes together this way or that way. A certain yeoman can either be built, like I said, with a bolt-action rifle and a trench club, or an axe and a trench club. Those are your options. But if you want him to give him a sword or a great hammer or an automatic shotgun, those are all things that are, you know, available to him in the list, but they're not in the box. So you're going to have to kit bash that to make it happen. It'd be nice to have those parts, some of those extra weapons and stuff like that in this kit if it were possible. But they do make a 3D printable like weapon loadout for both the like church forces, the hell forces, and even the Sultanate forces. So you could probably, you know, get some 3D printed automatic shotguns and then add them to the guys that you wanted to if you wanted to go down that road, as long as you were cool with kit bashing, I guess. All in all, I'm really looking forward to painting them. I really feel like they're going to be very interesting to paint. And I'm also looking forward to seeing the next batch of plastic miniatures that they're going to come out with, hopefully kind of soon, you know? I'm hoping that it's going to be one of the Hell factions. If I'm perfectly honest, I really want it to be Trench Ghosts, because the Trench Ghosts are just a super cool sub-faction that I really would love to see their take on it, you know? I was planning on just using what a lot of people have been using, which is like, you know, GW Night Haunts, and you give them gas masks and rifles and stuff like that, but I'd love to see what they're going to be doing with it, and I hope that that's the next one that they do. So what do you think? Are you looking forward to getting these models for your own Trench Crusade forces? Or do you prefer the 3D printed figures or just kit bashing your own? Let us all know down in the comments below. If you liked this video, then I would appreciate some plastic depressmentation of the like button. It really does help the channel. It helps the algorithm and all that stuff, and it helps me out. And thanks for doing it if you do. And also, if you want to see more videos like this every single Friday, then there's also a subscribe button while you're down there as well. And you can hit that, and it's also free. Thanks for watching.